pawn to c4 from the white side. Knight to f6. Knight c3. So we need to be careful here. If we go g6, this might transpose into a quick e4. But I don't think that's a problem. We just get a typical King's Indian. So let's go g6. Pawn to d4, bishop g7. And I'm expecting pawn to e4. d6 to prevent e5. Knight f3 or bishop e2. Pawn to h3 is very interesting, preventing bishop g4. I think my opponent wants to play knight f3 without this hanging over their heads, but that isn't that big of a problem. Let's just castle. Knight to f3. And now we have a couple of options. First of all, we can play this more Benoni style with pawn to c5. If pawn to d5, then we have a huge hole which we can exploit, and our bishop opens up. c5 takes, that only really benefits us. We get the open d file. We could also play for the move pawn to e5. This is much more King's Indian style. So we would have to prepare that either with knight to c6 or knight bd7. I mean, I think this is largely more preferential thing. If pawn to c5, maybe he gets bishop e3. Takes, knight c6. I think that's okay. Let's play this more Benoni style with pawn to c5. Kind of looking to activate our bishop here. Let's see what he plays. Pawn to d5. And now, very typically in these structures, you're playing for the breaks pawn to b5 and pawn to e6. So e6 we can play immediately. Or we could play more a6, b5 ideas. There's a lot of things we can do here. We could also rotate this knight to e5, this knight to e5. However, this seems a bit premature, looking to occupy this square. This doesn't really do anything in my opinion. Pawn to e6 kind of has the problem after takes... pawn to e6, after takes, bishop takes, we have a huge hole here. But e6 takes, we could go f takes maybe, then we have open f file. I think we're playing for e6 here. What about e6? He goes like bishop e2, takes, queen takes. Then we get bishop e6, and both of our bishops are open. Let's go for pawn to e6 here. I understand I'm also creating a huge weakness here, which you can maybe exploit with knight b5, but I don't think that's really that dangerous. If d takes e6, bishop e6, knight b5, we might have to play knight e8 to defend this pawn, and then we kick the knight out with h6. Actually, wait, if takes, knight b5, we take on e4. Bishop g5, I don't think that's that good of a move. The whole point is that if we take on d5, knight takes d5, and then he has some very nice pressure here. So he can't take, that's obvious. We could get out of the pin with a move like queen a5. The problem there is that he can take and then take on d6. h6 might be the correct move here. Bishop h4, we play g5. I actually quite like this. Knight bd7 also playable. Knight bd7 is also playable. But knight bd7 kind of blocks the connection with this pawn. And then he has knight b5 maybe. Let's go h6. This pin's annoying me. Let's just get rid of the bishop. Bishop h4, we play g5. And even though we're creating huge weaknesses here, I think it's worth it. So he goes bishop to h4. So I mean, yeah, I think we play pawn to g5 here. There's no sacrifices here. There's nothing. Let's go g5. I think the move here is knight h5. Because we're looking to win the bishop. Bishop h2 is forced, and then our bishop is open. So I'm looking for knight h5, bishop h2, and then queen a5 to kind of team up with the bishop. I think that's the way to go. Yeah, I like that plan a lot. We could also go queen a5 immediately, and then look to take on e4, because of the pin, of course. So queen a5 is also interesting. So queen a5, bishop d6, rook d8 he can push. That's the problem. And then his bishop is locked in. No, let's go knight h5. Let's go knight to h5. Bishop h2 is virtually forced, because otherwise we completely ruin white's kingside pawn structure. So I'm expecting bishop h2 here. And actually after bishop h2 we could also jump into f4. This is actually not that terrible of a move. I actually just realized this. Because if my knight comes to f4, we completely block the bishop. This bishop then becomes stuck to the g2 pawn, because if it ever moves, we could play knight takes g2 check. Oh wow, he chops. That's not a good move, I don't think. So of course if we take back, he's going to take here and win a pawn. But I think we can take, and even though he wins a pawn, I think this structure is so bad for him, I think it's worth it. Yeah, let's take his bishop. We now have the bishop pair. Okay. Yeah, so rook f7, fg3, of course. I think the move is queen a5 here. Unquestionably queen a5. He can't take on d6 because takes. The rook is lost. There's no sacrifices. Taking this is terrible. My bishop is very nicely placed here. Let's add pressure to the knight on c3. And even though we're a pawn down, I think we're actually doing good here. I think our position is superior. Simply because we have such activity. In general, if... Okay, he goes queen to d2. I think here we just go knight c6. Knight c6 looks correct to me. Because if knight c6 and the bishop comes out, and perhaps we can even jump in. Knight takes, bishop takes, and he's never castling short because of our rook. What about knight c6, knight b5? If knight c6, knight b5, I think we can just take and take. He takes here, bishop b6, and we just have an okay position there. Yeah, let's go knight c6. Bishop to d3, I saw that move. Yeah, let's go bishop e6. Now it's important that we find the right move here. So I think knight d5 is actually wrong. Precisely because this just opens the f-file and leads to 100 different trades. Knight b5 I prefer a lot more. Looking for the bishop, defending d5. Yeah, knight b5 just looks so much better to me. And also the second the bishop moves, this pawn gets loose. In fact, this pawn is lost. Let's go knight b5. Let's go knight to b5. I guess he can actually... Oh, I missed this. I missed that he can actually move his knight. Because my queen is now undefended. We can't take his bishop. Okay, I missed that. I don't think it's the end of the world, but I did miss that. And in general, we actually shouldn't neglect like certain rook sacrifices. Because if we can exchange... Okay, bishop e2. Bishop e2 is a good move. So this pawn is undefended. So it would be smart to defend it with like rook d8. Knight b5, a6, and he can't take because of the pin. He does get e5 in that position, but I think we can find a way around it with like knight c6, knight e5. So I don't think that's a problem. You know, it's not an easy position for black here. Because white has such a nice bind of the d5 square. It's actually making it quite difficult to maneuver correctly. Alternatively, instead of knight b5, maybe I actually should have jumped in this way. But yeah, like I mentioned, takes, this just leads to a bunch of trades. Okay, that's a good move. We have to drop back, of course. So once again, we can always jump in with our knight here. If he plays b4, well, that just loses a pawn. So I think that's okay for us. He also has created some holes here, so maybe at some point we can jump in with our knight to b3. Yeah, I actually quite like that. I quite like going like queen c7, and then just like jumping in. That seems quite good. Okay, bishop d3 back, so my opponent is just shuffling. So knight jumping in is interesting. takes, bishop takes, king slides. And then we like double up. That's one option. That does lead to a bunch of trades though, which I don't know how I feel about. G4 is the other option here, and I actually like G4 a lot. So G4 takes. He does get knight H4. He does get knight H4, knight G6. So G4 takes, knight H4. But if knight H4, we can actually jump in with our knight. So it actually might be worth it. I don't know. I think G4 is actually not terrible here. I think we have good play after G4. And the fact that this pawn is weak doesn't mean anything. He doesn't have a dark square bishop. Let's go pawn to G4. Let's play a bit aggressive here. Also in general, if he takes back, we don't even have to take this pawn immediately. His pawns are so terrible, these tripled pawns. Maybe we don't even take here. But no, we do take. We do take. Okay. Knight H4. That kind of makes sense. Alternatively, we actually go... Oh, this is a good move. Knight E5 is a very good move. We're attacking the bishop. We're preventing the knight coming into G6. I like this. I like this a lot, actually. Right, the second the knight moves, we jump in. Right? The knight was on F3. We couldn't jump in. The second the knight moves, we take control of this square. And now if he goes back, well, now we can just take and go bishop H3. And like check or something. Rook F8. Okay, bishop E2. I didn't expect that move. That move is not good. This move has to be correct, bishop E6. No, this is a very complicated game. I'm not sure who's better. I think white's a bit better, but it's very difficult to say. I mean, I have the bishop. It's very difficult to say who's better here. Let's go. Let's go knight takes C4 here. Okay, bishop D3. I didn't expect that move. This just blunders a queen in one move. He just blundered a queen. He just No, how did you blunder a queen? Oh my god, after all of that, he just blundered a queen. Oh my god. Alright, so let's have a look at the game. I don't know how I feel about the game. The opening was good. He played this weird H3 move, which is so strange. We played a more Benoni style, which is okay. E6, bishop G5. This was good. Yeah, so we kind of went for this pawn sacrifice line, where we sacked a pawn but gained the bishop pair. And I don't really know how that played out for me. I don't think it was actually correct. Maybe E6 just isn't that good of a move. Maybe it's too premature precisely because of bishop G5. Like, maybe it's better to first play H6, similar to him. If he tries to set up the battery, we always have king H7. And there's no bishop G5. So now we can play E6 without this pin. Maybe this would have been better. But okay, we play E6. We sacrifice the pawn. Queen A5 is a good move, I think. Queen D2. We develop. And knight B5. So knight B5, I don't think knight B5 was a very good move. I think knight D4 is much cleaner. Wait, knight B4, not knight B5. I think knight D4 is much cleaner. But like I mentioned, after takes, king H2, for example. Yeah, I mean, rook F8, takes. At the end of the day, he's still a pawn up. Like, let's not forget, he is a pawn up. So, I mean, we have nice pressure, but I just don't know if it's enough. So we go knight B4. Knight C6. And then we kind of play for this crazy move G4. I think G4 is a good move. Knight H4. The knight jumps in. This was good. Takes, king G8. And bishop E6 also is a very good move. This is a nice double attack. Knight to F5 and knight takes C4. Wait a second. So I guess, or maybe honestly, maybe he misclicked. Maybe he wanted to play bishop takes C4 but just misclicked. That's actually very possible. So bishop C4, bishop C4. Probably just rook F4 actually is the best move here. Looking to get in. Maybe like bishop E6. Bishop E6, rook G4, takes, something like this. King H7, king H8 maybe, to get out of the pin. Yeah, we would have reached a position like this, where objectively speaking, it's probably equal. White definitely has the initiative with the activity, and the pawn structure advantage, but that's how the game would have gone. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think he's better in the final position after bishop c4, and then rook f4. But I mean, hey, we ended up winning. We got 8 rating points. We're up to 2052 here. So yeah, very good episode.